Good morning. Thanks for joining us. I'm Marlon Bowling, your tour guide to the ag commodities, and we have Brian Hoops on the line with us. And he, of course, is with, Midwest Market Solutions. He is in Springfield, Missouri. So, Brian, I'm just curious, did you happen to get some rain out of that system that went through the area yesterday?
We did, Marlon. It probably rained from about 7 in the morning till 8 or 9 last night. Very heavy in the morning hours, in the afternoon, evening, more type intermittent and light showers. But the good thing was nobody lost electricity or power lines were down or trees down or anything. It was just a nice, steady, gentle rain, and certainly needed in this area. Absolutely.
Okay, well, first of all, I want to take a look at the prices from last night on the Globex trade, and then I want to get into these new overnight, or not overnight, but weekly export sales. So let's take a look at the corn prices here provided by Bar Chart. And last night we had September corn finishing up 2 higher. We were at $4.83 per bushel this morning. And the December contract was up 1.5 pennies at $4.95 3/4. A relatively quiet trade overnight in the corn. On soybeans, you had the September up 6 3/4 at $13.62. Now remember, China bought about 250,000 tons of soybeans. That was announced yesterday morning. Don't know if that's related to that. Probably not, because that's old news now. But November soybeans were, up 9 at 13.17 Okay, on the wheat, let's go to Chicago. And in September, we were 4 higher at 6.39. You had that December contract up by 2 3/4 cents. In Kansas City, September was 7.5 higher this morning at 7.69 per bushel, and December was up 7 1/4. In spring wheat, you had Minneapolis September up 6 1/4 at 8.26, and you had December 6 1/4 higher in the morning trade. Let's take a look at the cotton market here. You had December finishing 36 points higher at 85.71 per pound. So solidly above 85 cents. In fact, for a while, it got as high as 86.09. Now to the weekly export sales numbers that just came out mere moments ago. Here you go. Corn, 908,800 tons. That was a fairly hefty total. That was up 40% in the old crop portion of that from last week, but then that's the minority of it. Most of it was for the new crop. Soybeans, 1.5 million tons were sold last week. And remember, we just had a couple of announcements this week that aren't even in that total. Soy meal, 429,900 tons. Soy oil, we had net reductions of 700 tons. And the wheat, 261,200 tons. So that's a look at that. Now, that actually included some net reductions, they say, of 6,400 tons for next year's new crop. I thought that was a little bit interesting. Also, we had numbers for grain sorghum, cotton, and rice. On grain sorghum, 63,900 tons. Upland cotton, 280,700 running bales. And the rice, 95,700 tons for this week. Brian, your first take when you saw those numbers, what did you think of them, and are they going to have any market impact today?
Yeah, the wheat number is a marking year high. So last week's wheat number around 15 million. This is over 20 million bushels. So we're seeing an increase in our wheat numbers, and that's encouraging. This is the time of year where we absolutely need to be selling a large portion of our wheat, because our wheat sales then start to trickle off as we get into late winter months and early spring. Australia's crop is being harvested, and we just can't compete. So right now, we've heard some rumors that China had bought 2 cargoes of hard red spring wheat from the U.S. yesterday. We haven't seen confirmation of that, so that could be a little bit of a disappointment to that market. But wheat sales overall just remain slower than last year's dreadful pace. In fact, all of these sales, corn, soybeans, and wheat, well behind a year ago pace. In fact, corn is the 4th slowest pace of the last 13 years. Soybeans are the 3rd slowest of the last 15 years. So even with the new crop sales that we've seen in soybeans here recently, most of that to China, we're unfortunately trailing last year's pace. We unfortunately are still remaining slower than desired. And there's not much to get excited about in these export numbers other than soybean meal, which continues to be very strong. And that's because Argentina has been out of the export market, and China has been buying U.S. product and bringing it into their country and then converting that. So it's, other than soybean meal, our export sales bases are pretty slow in just about everything else.
That's very true. Okay, we'll come back and we'll look at the beef and the pork export numbers as well. We'll have them when we come back. Okay, we're back talking with Brian Hoops, the president of Midwest Market Solutions, and we're talking weekly export sales numbers. Well, we covered the grain side a little bit ago. Let's see what we had for beef and pork sales, shall we? So, last week, on the beef side, I see a total of 14,800 tons. That would be up a little bit, it says, from last week, but down 8% from the 4-week average. I thought the numbers were better than that last week, but I guess my memory fails me. The pork at 22,300 tons, that would be up 25%, they say, from what we had last week. So anyway, what do you think of 14,000 tons of beef sold? Is that good or bad?
Well, it's not great overall. It is better than last week's sales. Those are pretty dismal. We saw China show up as a very minor buyer and taker of products. So they bought some beef and pork. They're taking shipments of beef and pork as well. So it's encouraging that they're stepping into the marketplace. But these are not great sales by any means for beef or for pork numbers. They're improvement from a week ago, but that's about all you can say for these numbers. We just are seeing a U.S. dollar that's been stronger for the most part here, working against us. Now it is down today, so maybe we can get some fun buying versus a weaker dollar in a host of these markets, including the livestock markets. And we're starting to hear some dress trade leak out. 298. We've heard some private clients tell us 300 they sold yesterday that hasn't made the news wires yet. And this is dress trade in Nebraska. So those are good numbers. 295 was where we traded the bulk of dress trade last week. That would be up $3 to $5. And hopefully the market can rally off of that news.
Now, from what I understand, the Northern Plains or Central and Northern Plains, they are bringing a lot more money than the Southern Plains. Is that actually the case? Is that still true or not?
Yeah, the numbers have been much tighter for the last 6 to 8 months in the Northern Plains, and they're getting higher money, much higher than what the Southern Plains have been able to take. In fact, there's been some cattle that were purchased in the Southern Plains and transported into Nebraska just because the numbers are that much tighter. But yeah, that's been the case, and probably will continue to be the case at least for the next 3 to 6 months, or at least for the foreseeable future.
Now you have to weigh the shipping costs and transportation expenses
Yep.
there. All right. Well, thanks for pointing that out. Let's take a look at where we finished up yesterday on our livestock trade, shall we? Let's go to live cattle prices. And we finished up with October live cattle 80 higher at 181.70 yesterday. Over on the feeder cattle side, we had September up $1.20. They finished at 250.62. They kind of struggled earlier in the day. And then on lean hogs, we wrapped up the session yesterday with October. Wow, down $3 at 81.57. So we'll have to see if they can bounce off of those levels here today or not. I appreciate the help here, Brian. Thanks for helping us navigate the open this morning. That's Brian Hoops of Midwest Market Solutions with a look at what to expect in our trade today. And it could be anything goes.
I was going to say it's going to be an interesting day for sure.
And don't forget WASD tomorrow. We'll have live coverage right here.